Welcome back to Bento. Today we're going to be talking about the new Chainsaw Man chapter, chapter 128. This was a pretty good chapter, as a lot of stuff actually happens compared to the previous handful of chapters we've gotten, which were pretty short. This chapter, however, focuses on a lot of the Falling Devil and how it is bringing out some of Asa's deepest secrets within her, shining an entirely new light on Asa overall, more specifically that I don't think she's a femcel. So let's get into it. This is Chainsaw Man, chapter 128. Alright, so this chapter starts off pretty quickly. Yoru tries to make Asa snap out of her fear as she's growing deeper and deeper into it. So, as Asa is falling in the air, which is a really cool visual, Yoru activates Nail Knife, which basically, well, it's as the name suggests, and it's very brutal looking. It's a detached nail from Asa that gets to be turned into a knife. I imagine this is probably going to be used later in the fight with the Falling Devil, if I were a betting man. It's a pretty good setup. Yoru did this basically so that Asa would focus on the pain instead of fear, so it also has kind of two functions, I guess. One is a weapon, but as well one to keep Asa kind of sane in this fight. So Yoru figures out basically that this devil is based on the primal fear of falling. In other words, the devil is named the Falling Devil. However, not everyone around them has a fear of falling, and because of that, some humans around her remain unaffected. This makes total sense, and this is just my read of it. Of course, you're allowed to disagree with me in the comments, but I think the Falling Devil, the reason why some of these people are unaffected and they're not falling is just because, like everyone, people can be afraid of something, anything, and some people can be afraid of almost nothing. And I think for these people, they're just not afraid of falling. So that's why they're unaffected by the Falling Devil. I mean, why would they? Makes total sense, right? So as the chapter continues and she's figuring all of this out, she cuts Asa's hand again to help her focus back on the pain. She was starting to think about her old cat that was drowned by one of her caretakers at the time, which is pretty brutal, to say the least, and totally unfair to the kitty. Meow. But Asa then forces Yoru out of control of her body, and for good reasons. She feels her decision making is bad. I mean, she fears it pretty much, because Asa does not trust Yoru with her body because she doesn't know a single thing about Yoru. I mean, she's the war devil, but we don't. And this is a good point by Asa. We just don't know anything about Yoru as a person. And as well, Yoru is constantly saying scary things to Asa and taking over Asa's body without a care, seemingly at random. And I can understand Asa's trust issue. As we're about to go into, I even sympathize even more with Asa. Especially, well, just in general, but we'll get to that here in a second. Yoru says, though, it's not because of the trust issues, it's because Asa is afraid. And I can also see from her perspective why she would think that way. But Asa reiterates her point by reminding her she cut her hand not too long ago. And I think this was to say that Asa realizes, yes, she is afraid, of course, and that Yoru is technically right in the situation, but she's not fully right because Yoru cut her hand. I mean, that pretty much backs up Asa's entire point. It's not the fact that she's afraid, it's the fact that she's afraid of Yoru's decision making and cannot be trusted. Yoru reminds Asa of her powers and how she can just help them escape alive, and then Asa asks Yoru if she can see her true fears, and we get into this really amazing sequence, probably the best point so far, in my opinion, of Chainsaw Man Part 2, just because I love it so much. Her true fears, Asa, are her trust issues, which she has in spite of her loneliness. So what this means is basically she sometimes goes to approach someone, but immediately gets hurt or something goes wrong and then she closes up even more. Or maybe nothing goes wrong, she's just so awkward that she reads something as, someone getting hurt or her being annoying, and then just closes up. Basically, Asa is afraid of solitude and companionship both equally. These two things feed into one another. So, as the Falling Devil pretty much, I guess I would say the Falling Devil kind of figures this out. It presents its next meal, Derut Atalanta, which is made from parts of devil hunters who have failed to take the Falling Devil out. And then like a giant worm of some kind then appears. It looks horrifying and announces its new next dish, Asa Root Yoru, and says it's a human and war devil fusion. That's pretty much it for the chapter itself, at least the chronology of events, but this chapter, in my opinion, had a lot of takeaways besides that. And I think my favorite and most important one is Asa's fear of companionship and solitude. In many ways, this fear within Asa reminds me of Asuka, actually, from Evangelion, and the concept of the hedgehog's dilemma. To describe it in so many words, it's basically this dilemma a hedgehog has when trying to get close to someone it likes. It desperately wants to have that intimacy with other hedgehogs, but can't, because if it gets too close, it will poke the others, because, you know, it's a hedgehog. So because of that, the hedgehog's need for companionship just simply cannot be fulfilled, as it is too scared to be intimate with others, as it would believe, based on past events, that it would just hurt them in the end. Asa, having this fear, really completes a good bit of her character, in my opinion, at least sort of the base of her character. I mean, how many times have we as a fan base called Asa a femcel, or female incel for short? We also saw how she acted with Denji, which is a perfect example of what Hedgehog's dilemma is and what Asa is describing. She asked Denji out on a date and then yelled at him for being on a date with her, proclaiming she never wanted to go out with him to begin with. So this all leads me to believe that no, Asa is not as much a femcel or incel as much as Asa has a legit phobia of companionship and solitude. She wants companionship, but she is too fearful she or the others she's reaching out to will be hurt, and thus, because of that, is driven back into solitude. It's a cycle of these two issues that feed negatively into one another, making Asa's entire person what it is. So Asa needs really just to break that fear, and what better way to break that fear than to confront and defeat it with the falling devil. My theory is that once this devil is defeated, we will solve a massive hurdle between most likely Denji and Asa's relationship, and she will get closer to Denji from there on out, feeding into what Yoru wants. However, I do think this challenge will be great for Yoru and Asa's relationship, as the War Devil is untrustworthy currently and just, well, they can't be trusted. This is all to say that I think this chapter proves one thing, and in my opinion, that is, Asa is not a femcel. She's a little bit of that, but is mostly just a girl who has been traumatized to such a degree that she's developed a sort of hedgehog's dilemma. Though I want to ask, what do you think? Is Asa a femcel, or is she more than that? Is she both? Be sure to share your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.